Say what a treat and delight it is to see such a full base medrash. It's very beautiful and very special, and I feel very honoured that everyone is part of this chaburah. And a particular thank you to Adam for a decade now of running and promoting and encouraging and so on, giving me chazuk and reminding me when we need to move on to the next to the sugya or we need another share and the like. And I'm genuinely grateful to have a chavruta such as Adam in helping me do this. So I suppose to summarize where we were up to from, I'm sorry the shiurim have been a little bit sporadic at the beginning of the sugya because of my commitments, but hopefully they'll now be a little more regular for a few weeks. No trips planned, Baruch Hashem. We were looking at Rabbi Nechemia's view, in which Rabbi Nechemia says that Rabbi Nechemia Omer ein Nitalin and LeTsorech, that Akedi can only LeTsorech. So I mentioned this, I think, briefly in the last year, but just to revisit this, Rabbi Nechemia clearly has a tighter definition than we do la halacha as to what a kli is, a kli whose primary purpose is issa, to what degree it nonetheless on Shabbos can be used leheta. The background to this, in the bigger picture, is that even though we're used to thinking of something where it's muktza or not muktza, that's not really accurate. The more correct formulation is that there are things which are not omeid for any hishtamshus whatsoever. They're not muchon in the least, let's say a stone or the like. But a keli is a keli. It's set aside for human use. It's a human servant. It's there for our needs. And therefore the majority opinion, the Tanakhama's view, and this is how we paskin, is that even though a klisha melachto, so you have a klisha melachto leheta, which is mutter because it's omeid for mutter use, and a klisha melachto leissa, which is mukta in the sense that its primary use is not muchen for its primary use. It's not prepared for its primary use. Nonetheless, a kli, according to the mainstream opinion, the Tanakhama's opinion, how we paskin, is always omeid for any other use that's mutter that you could use it for. It's true that this object is dedicated to be a pen, but in being a pen and being a keli, it's omeid for, it's my servant, it's omeid for any use I could possibly use it for. And therefore on Shabbos, it's always muchen for any other use, and therefore if I need to use it as a doorstopper or a paperweight, I can do so. A stone, I can't do that with, unless I specified the stone to become my doorstopper, and there's discussion how you specify or dedicate something for that use. But a pen is a keli is always omeid for everything, and therefore can be used for any use. This is the majority opinion. Rabbi Nechemia disagrees, and he says, no, a klisha melachto leissa is only omeid for its use, for its primary use, and therefore is not omeid for any other uses, or at least, sorry, I should say that more accurately, can't be used on Shabbos for any other uses. It can only be used LeTsorech. There's two ways to understand exactly what Rabbi Nechemia means, and we'll get to that later. But la halacha, however we understand his conceptualization, he says it can't be used for other uses. It can only be used for its tzorech, for its, in some shape or form, its primary use. How narrow is Rabbi Nechemia's point? So if we think of this in the context of Muktza, the Tanakhama argues that a keli is always omeid for any use, and that even though it's a klisha melachta issa, it's still omeid for all other, any tzorech gufay. It's always mutter tzorech gufay. If I can squeeze any other use out of it, that it's never mukta for that. It's always muchen for that. Rabbi Nechemia says no. It's a narrower definition. It's only omeid for its own tzorech, whatever that own tzorech means. How tight is that omeid for? So what's agreed is he of the view in this formulation that it's not muchen for other things. So Rashi has the tightest formulation. Rashi says that it's only it's only tashmish hamiyuchad loy. So a kli has a tashmish hamiyuchad loy. That's it specifically for. A hammer is there for knocking nails into walls. Any other use of the hammer is beyond. It can't be used on Shabbos. In this formulation, we're saying the pshat is because it's not muchen for that. So I certainly can't use a hammer as a paperweight. A hammer's not omeid to be a paperweight. It's not muchen to be a paperweight. It's muchen to be a hammer. So of course, it's not muchen to be a paperweight. The Tanakhama argues and says a kli is muchen for anything, but the Nechemia very reasonably says no, it's not muchen to be a paperweight. Certainly not that. But it's even not muchen to be used for any other forms of hammering. It's a hammer. It's not there for use as a coconut sledgehammer, and therefore even for that it can't be used. It's muktzah and can't be used. That's the Rashi says only LeTsorech only tashmish hamiyachad lo. Rashi says that several times. Yes, Gary. Yes.
Actually, one could say it's not cheaper banging things with construction.
Okay, so 2 points I want to make. The first is, you're right, it's subjective in the sense that it depends what the kli is miyuchad for. So whatever the kli is miyuchad for, that's what it's miyuchad for. Can you repurpose kalim for other uses? You can, and there's a whole halachic discussion about how you repurpose them. If your hammer is stored in your toolbox with the screwdrivers in your garage, then it's not there as a piece of cutlery used for cracking coconuts. And when you get a coconut and realize you can't break it any other way, you have to crack it outside to your garage and take it out of the toolbox. That's not called omid for coconut cracking. If you have a hammer because you love coconuts, and you're always having coconuts, and you put a hammer in your cutlery drawer along with other things, then then it would be miyuchad for that. Now, how tight a definition within the use of hammer, is it for also hammering boards? Also, not things that would depend on. I'm not enough of an expert on DIY to know is there different types of hammers. Is there different type of hammer for nails than for boards and so on? But that would depend on what the shtamshus of the KD, the KD is. If you have a bottle of ketchup, it's used to contain foods. I use this example because we used it in brachas when we were learning brachas. So if for some reason I always use this for writing. Or maybe a more realistic example, if you have a spout with an icing that comes through it, and you don't just use it for spreading icing, but use it to write things because you're a chef, you produce professional level cakes, then maybe that hishtamshus would become as a kli ksiva. And even though it's not what normally we think of as a pen like this, a ketchup bottle is not a pen, but maybe you can be miyachid it for ksiva if that's how you use it. And then there'd be a debate: to what degree can you repurpose things, and to what degree is your own private use enough to re-specify the nature of the object itself. But in principle, Canaan have uses, and that's what the laws of Muktza are built on. And Nechemia, in this, Nechemia's view according to Rashi is clear. The logic behind it we will revisit, but his view is it can be useful according to Rashi. Tashbisham yuchadlo, its primary dedicated purpose, not for anything else. And the consequence of this is, as Rashi spells out, that any klishim nachtan issa doesn't have a tzorich gufa that's mutter. Because by definition, the klishim nachtan issa means its primary purpose is issa, and therefore you can't ever use it for its non-primary purpose, and therefore there'll never be the heter of the tzorich gufa. That's Rashi's view. Yes.
Does he understand the Mishnah Mephoreshet as Coronis
that's really the Gemara earlier, in which it says that he argues with this.
He argues with the
Correct. Yes. By the way, one of the prices we pay of learning Gemara, not Mishnah, is we lose the flow of Mishnayos. If we wouldn't have spent 6 months on this because of all the Gemara in between, we'd have seen a Mishnah and then another Mishnah. And this is Rabbi Nechemia arguing really on everything that's preceded it. But what I would say to you is, do Chazorah of the top of Kuf Chof Gimel Amud Aleph, because there the Gemara really is discussing how Rabbi Nechemia fits into this. I would say for those who have joined the chaburah later, I would strongly encourage you just to do Bikiyas from the beginning of the parak. I appreciate it will take some time, but it doesn't need to take tons of time. Don't do it B'iyun, but just to get a flow of where things are going. Even like Daf Yomi level, or just listen to Daf Yomi Shiur online or whatever. But just even if it's just an hour or two, just look at the flow of the Gemara, because Paul's point is a reminder of the importance of also seeing the earlier Mishnah. So thank you for that. So I saw a hand up somewhere in Shimi.
Yeah. Are there animals in which Rashi is more makeup? Rashi, you are more makeup than other Mishnah?
Possibly with respect to the Soch Makomo, maybe in one case. We'll see. I believe so, but let's see how things hashpen out in the continuation. So there's two. I want to work out Nechemia his views around the Soch Makomo. So maybe actually you can help me, because I hadn't thought about this like this. I was working through, because the Rishonim discuss this. What's Rashi's view about the extent of the heter of the Soch Makomo? What I didn't do, and probably should have done, and will do later for the next year, is work out whether any combination that works out is more makel than other Rishonim. But you can help me with this. The other thing we're going to try and work out is what is the basis for Nechemia's narrow view. And we'll see there's an alternative model. And again, I didn't actually finish off the maths of this, whether that would come out more lenient to Rishonim. I think the answer is no, but I would appreciate everyone's help in working this out. So we'll get to this at some point.
On that,
yeah.
discuss the socket with the cases of the strap, so that the roughly could end up being more makel.
So that is what I was vaguely thinking of in terms of we'll get to this about maybe to what degree Nechemia is built on Nechemia. There's Reb Nechemia and then there's Nechemia. Is everyone familiar with this? Those who are newly joined. You mentioned Nechemia. Does that ring a bell at all? Or no? Okay, so when we get there, we'll summarize this and fine. I'm going to put that point on hold and we'll revisit it again. Okay. Yes.
Would Reb Nechemia apply the same Tashmish Amiyachaglo to the Russian lap of a heter? So only for the specific use of if it's supplied for
Seemingly yes. Seemingly yes, but again we'll get to that a little bit later. It ties in again a little bit with Kuf Kaf Gimel Amud Aleph, but we'll work that through. Yeah. Okay. For now, I just want to summarize basically the three principal positions in the matter of what Nechemia says, and highlight them if you haven't yet seen them in the Rishonim, just to draw your attention to them, and then we'll try and calculate all this. Okay. The second opinion, the middle position, is the view that the Ramban says, and it's printed in the Rashba in my handouts. I think I can't remember if the handouts I sent you are exactly the same as the handouts I printed for myself. At the top of page 2, does it begin with the word V'yesh Mefarshim? Yeah. Okay. So the V'yesh Mefarshim is what we think is the Ramban. So the Rashba was a Talmud of the Ramban. It's interesting he doesn't quote his Rebbe here by name. Maybe when he was in yeshiva, his Rebbe wasn't yet saying this, and therefore he never heard this from the Ramban. But in our edition of the Ramban, this is the Ramban's view, but the Rashba quotes this as V'yesh Mefarshim. There are those who explain. So I don't know if he didn't learn this from the Ramban or what happens here. But either way, the second position is the Ramban's view, and the view of which is the same as the view of the Yesh Mefarshim in the Rashba, who says that what Nechemia means to say is not as narrow as Rashi's Tashmish Yuchad law, in other words, hammering nails but not hammering coconuts, but means anything which is the use of the implement as opposed to a different type of use of the implement. So a hammer can be used for hammering anything. So you can use the hammer to break the coconut. All of Nechemia means to exclude is if you want to use the hammer as a seat or a paperweight. In other words, Tashmish Yuchad is Rashi's language. The language of the Mishnah of Elah LeTsorech, what Nechemia means by that, it can only be used for its purpose, albeit for an unusual type of use of that purpose, but not for another type of functionality. So as long as it's its primary functionality, even if the style of using it differs, that would be enough. So a hammer is used for bashing things with. This is a klish melachot and issa because it's a hammer that's used for nails. Nonetheless, he would allow any tzorech gufo, which is also hitting things. However, to use it for a non-hitting function, that's what Reb Nechemia is coming to exclude. So again, what we're playing with in this understanding is how, to what degree is a kli by default a slave muchen for any uses? Rashi says no. According to Reb Nechemia, according to the Tanna Kamma, we know the answer. It's muchen for any use at all. That's all called a tzorech gufo. According to Reb Nechemia, it's narrower. Rashi says it's super narrow. It's only literally its dedicated use. The Ramban says, the Yesh Mefarshim say, any use which is that function, that type of use, even if it's an unusual version of that use, as opposed to something which is a different use. Eddie, you're looking puzzled.
That makes it very difficult to define what form of use. If you feel like it's on you or the other, so if I'm doing that position, it doesn't matter what I'm receiving it, whether it's there or whether
it's a good question. The truth is, were we to paskin like from Nechemia, no doubt the poskim would flesh out exactly what the parameters of each of these views are, and it would end up with the Yisifim and Shulchan Aruch, like we have in equivalence in our Halacha Ma'aser. Since we don't paskin like that, no one's completely worked out the boundaries of this. So you're correct. You could argue that bashing a coconut is different to hammering in a nail, because the point of hammering in a nail is to push something forward as opposed to break something. I'm using it simply as a good example because the Gemara talks about smashing nuts as another use of a hammer, but it is a little hard to define exactly the boundaries of each of these concepts.
it's like it's about what I'm doing. Therefore, anything that I'm actually roughly, which is what is being hit is either DIY.
I don't think that's correct. I don't think it's about me because they're arguing about kalim. I think it's about kalim. What is the use of the shtamshus of the keli? Because he says let's just learn inside just 3 lines of the Rashba. So turn to the top of page 2 in the source sheet. Was everyone on the WhatsApp group already when I gave out these source sheets, or should I post them back on? Does anyone not have access to them? No, okay, fine. Are you still on our WhatsApp group, or do you need to be re-added? He kicked you off, but he'll put you back on. Okay. Adam. Okay. So we'll put them back on, and we'll resend it. V'yesh mefarshim. So the top of page 2. V'yesh mefarshim to Rabbi Nechemia afidu k'tishim lachtel issa mishkachas LeTsorech tashmishay. So the background of this is he's just pointed out that according to Rashi, you have no example of a klisha melachot issa where you can use it as LeTsorech gufo, because by definition, a klisha melachot issa, Rashi says this point himself, a klisha melachot issa can only be used for the tashmish hamiyuchel if its dedicated function, and its dedicated function is osa. You can have the klisha melachot issa where there's another mutter use for it. Nechemia only asserted where you're changing it to another melacha, another type of labor, another type of creative activity, of craftsmanship. A blacksmith hammer, to sit on it or to cover a keli with it. Even though it's a melachot heta. But cracking nuts is called tashmish miyuchad. Because it's miyuchad for hitting with it. Nonetheless, it's not shin of the tashmish. So I think what he's saying is that the function of the hammer is as a hitting implement, and therefore any hitting would be included in this. I don't think this is a people-centric svara. I think this is an implement, a KD-centric svara. That's my understanding of it. And the shtamshus of the hammer is for any hitting, which is why I felt it was right to say that cracking a coconut would also be included in this. It's true that hammering a nail and cracking a coconut is a very different achievement to each other, but nonetheless, it both share the commonality that is using a hammer for a hakar, and therefore that's enough. That's called also tashmish miyuchad. That's a type of tashmish miyuchad, according to the Yesh. Sorry, Josh, you have your virtual hand up.
Yeah, hi. I'm just a bit confused on Rabbi Nechemia. When we first met Rabbi Nechemia, I don't know if it's the first time he appears in the Gemara, but we saw it in the context of Kuf Kaf Bet Amud Bet, which was in the flow of, we had the Mishnah with the various cases of, taking a pitchfork to feed the katan and etc. That's where we first saw you could use a hammer to crack the nuts, right? Yes. And we come across in the Gemara, Rabbi Yehuda, who says this idea that we first see it of Klishim Lachtadeh, so LeTsorech Guf on Mutter, right?
Yes.
And then after that, on Kuf Kaf Gimel Amud Aleph at the top, we say Eitvei Abai and Rabba, and then we come across Rabbi Nechemia, right? Yes. And I think you've said just today that Rabbi Nechemia is essentially disagreeing with all the Mishnah that we've seen up till this point. So he would disagree with these cases where we use them for other things, right?
Yes.
So why the eight of a? Why is it eight of a Abaye the rubber? Sure, as in
no, the eight of a rubber is from Meducha, and on that he answers how many Rabbi Nechemia he, and therefore you can't prove to me.
Okay, I see.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
I would actually urge everyone, even those who have been here all the way through, to do Chazara on the thing, because it's very, very confusing, the relationship between the two, and what the price that we pay off Ian is that you sort of lose a bit, that you can lose sight of the wood from the trees. So I would just say let's just do Bekias Chazara on this. I'm speaking myself as much to everyone here. It's difficult. This. Okay, so either way, this is the shitta of the Ramban. And it's a middle. It's sort of a middle position. In fact, my notes I'm going to label as such on it. And finally, we get the broadest interpretation of Nechemia, who is Rabbeinu Tam. Those who want to see Rabbeinu Tam in the original, it's in Daf Lamed Vav, and I think I put that on the source sheet. But he's quoted by the Rashban and the like. And the way they understand him, he said, well, the words he says is kol tashmish sharogel lasos b'chol, anything that's a usual use of it on chol. And the Rishonim add in, even if it's occasional. So usual and occasional are not the same thing, right? There's usual means rogel means it's you're familiar with doing that. You would naturally turn to it to do it, even though that may only happen occasionally. Even that's enough. So if you would use a blacksmith's block as a chair when you run out of chairs at home, then according to Rabbi Nechemia, you can do that on. Rabbi Nechemia never meant to exclude that. He only meant to exclude something which you would just be a completely weird use of the keli. So that's Rabbi Nechemia's view. In other words, the Tanna Kama holds Kedusha Melachta Heter is allowed, even if kedim are your slaves for any use whatsoever, even if this is a use that you would never normally use it for in the weekday. And Nechemia says no, it has to be usual, normal. How normal is normal? Either something you'd regularly do, or according to the Rishonim quote Rabbi Tam, even something you'd occasionally do. But as long as it's normal, that's enough, even though it's abnormal in the sense of it's not the type of function that the keli was designed for. Those are the three views in Rabbi Nechemia. Yeah.
Really, time comes out the most broad. What we were thinking the Ramban, you could have a case whereby it's something which is the same functionality, but you never generally use it. If you just think about it on that Shabbos,
right?
Suddenly want to use it, and that you could according to the Ramban, you couldn't.
Yeah, you're right. I'm wrong. Yeah, you're correct. It can work the other way around also.
Yeah.
There's a breadth in the Ramban that's not. Yeah, you're correct. The Ramban who says as long as it's a same function, you could have a very rare. Never do it, but nonetheless, same function would be allowed. Thank you for calling me out on that. Yeah, absolutely right. Yes.
It's sort of where it's explaining, which is really not obviously what the breadth of movement means. It didn't come out quite strange in the Lashon of the Mishnah, because what we'll end up basically concluding is that the case of Shiur LeTsorech, the Chachamim would say Tzorech Gufo is Shiur LeTsorech. It's just a really weird way of using the Lashon of Tzorech, right?
Again, the Chachamim would say.
So if you have a case not that it is so, your Chachamim would say you can use it for even instances where, according to Rabbi Nechemia, it's not Nochem, because the Chachamim would say that technically is Nochem for everything.
Yes.
And therefore, the Lashon of the Gemara is that the Chachamim say that's LeTsorech Gufo.
Yes.
And Rabbi Nechemia would say, what you're calling LeTsorech Gufo, I'm calling Shiur LeTsorech.
Yes.
And you land up even in the Mishnah, where it seems like everyone's agreeing on what LeTsorech and Shiur LeTsorech means. The Chachamim got this whole case of LeTsorech Gufo, which Rabbi Nechemia would say, and the Chachamim would agree that's Shiur LeTsorech. LeTsorech Gufo is a Shiur LeTsorech.
Yeah.
Is this confusing?
Yes, it is. There's two levels of confusion in the vocabulary of the Mishnah. One is Rabbi Nechemia is not particularly clear in how the Mishnah lays them out, and the second, of course, is in the Rava Machlokas about how you learn the Mishnah. The same terms are not being used symmetrically at all. And the most I can say is that if we only had this Mishnah from Rabbi Nechemia, it'd actually be very hard to decipher what he really means. And you see that in all the Rishonim who signpost us to other cases where Rabbi Nechemia comes up. And from seeing all the scenarios, we have Talmud later with all the other cases, Rashi reference some, the other Rishonim reference others. Out of that emerges a clearer picture of what Rabbi Nechemia meant. But you're correct. If it was just our Mishnah, and I don't know why it's edited that way, why Rabbi Yodanossi put it in that form, I'm not sure. It's yeah. Yeah. Even then, Elah LeTsorech. It seems that, look, in direct answer to Karen's point, it seems the translation of LeTsorech Gufay is anything that the body is equipped to do, the body of the keli is equipped to do, as opposed to LeTsorech means anything which is that the keli is designed or specified to do. That's how the translation of the terms go. But I can't claim that if we saw just this mission in isolation without the Rishonim and other Gemaras, I'd have understood that. But it seems that's how they're using the term. So Gufo means anything which the guf of the object can be used for. And LeTsorech means anything which is the needs of the keli. Why is this keli in existence? What do I need it for? And that the Gufo is like an expanding term. That seems how it's used, but it's not. Yeah. But yeah, show me.
We didn't understand Rabbi Nechemia necessarily to be arguing that Ecclesia will have to the son does not LeTsorech Tashmisha is not LeTsorech Gufo. The LeTsorech Gufo is I want to use the actual object as opposed to either using the space that it leaves, or even less so doing something for I'm not using the object, I'm doing something on behalf of the object. But nevertheless, Rabbi Nechemia would say that it is LeTsorech Gufo, but that's not sufficient to be allowed in Shabbos. It also has to be LeTsorech Tashmisha. But the Mishnah is not, there's no argument between Tanakh and Nechemia about whether it's LeTsorech Gufo or not, just whether that's a heter.
So I agree with that summary. in a few minutes we'll try and understand more deeply what that machlokas is based on. But that's my point, that the term LeTsorech means the need for this object, i.e. it's tashmish that it was created for, and so gufo means any need that its body can offer, that the body of the keli can offer, which is a broader category. The Nechemia only allows LeTsorech, and the Chachomim allow even LeTsorech gufo. They're not necessarily arguing over the definition of the terms, but now they're arguing, in one way of understanding at least, they're arguing as to what a kli is muchen for on Shabbos, or what level of hachana you need in order to allow something to be used on Shabbos. Is it only a level of hachana of tzorech, or even a level of hachana of l'tzorech gufay? Which I in this formulation, I think means, to what degree is a keli automatically a slave for any possible, to what degree is it automatically omeid for any possible use? Yeah. Okay, I want to do, how are we doing time-wise? Oh. Okay, I'm going to say the shorter point now, and then on Tuesday, a fuller point. I would, just to give a heads up, on Tuesday, I'm going to look at how Reb Nechemia fits into the previous sugya of Nechemia. If you're able on Tuesday to learn, as I said, to do the Bekias up to where we're up to, that would be of help. If you're not, don't worry, and I will give a summary of the terms. If you're new to this chaburah and feeling overwhelmed, don't panic. It'll all begin falling into place. But that's what we're going to look at on Tuesday. On Tuesday, I'm going to try and understand on a deeper level what is the nekutas hamachlokas between Reb Nechemia and the Tanakama, and that will push us back to looking at the previous sugya. For now, I'll just say one more point which ties into what we were discussing, which is how does all of this align with Tzorech Mekomoi? So according to, let's just try and work this out. According to Tosfos, in the same way as as Reb Nechemia allows Klisha Melachot Issa for some version of Tzorech Gufay, for some rogil use, similarly, Hu Hadin, he would allow Tzorech Mekomoi according to Rava. That's Tosfos' view. According to Rashi, that Reb Nechemia only allows Tzorech HaMiyuchat Lo, Tashmish HaMiyuchat Lo. What would he say about Tzorech Mekomoi according to Rava? What would be his view about Tzorech Mekomoi? So, again, if you look through the Rishonim, this really turns out to be Machlokas Rishonim, and this is the final point that I just want to headline. According to the Ramban and the Rashba themselves, they seem to say that he would also allow LeTsorech Mekomoi, which is interesting. It needs a little bit of reflection, because we think of Tzorech Mekomoi as less of an integral use of the keli, but they say no, this is an integral use of a keli. To part of using a keli is to move it around to free up the space so that you can do other things in the space, and therefore they consider Tzorech Mekomoi, according to Rashi, according to Rava, to be equivalent to the narrowest definition of Tzorech Gufay. That's the Rishonim. The Rabbeinu Tam, at least cited by the Rashba, disagrees, and he says you wouldn't be allowed to use it L'Tzorech Mekomoi, because a Klish Melachta Leheta, you can use L'Tzorech Mekomoi, because since you can use the Klish Melachta Leheta on Shabbos, you can also, it's also muchen to be moved away once you finish using it if you need to do something else. But a Klish Melachta Le'issa, which is also L'Tzorech Gufay according to Nechemia, since you can't use it, how can you move it away if it's occupying a space? This is the svara of Rabbeinu Tam as cited by the Rashba. So we'll finish with that thought, and we've run out of time now. And Hashem on Tuesday we'll revisit that and finish again. Yeah. Well, everyone, thank you very much.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.